Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, I'm going to have to rethink some of my networking in my life. My latest uh, job that I got, while I was looking for it, I learned the hard way that statistics show that the vast majority of job opportunities come from networking, right? They don't start cold, right? And I have not been treating uh, those that I work around as well as I could. You got to remember where I came from. During the pandemic, I was upset about being singled out for being single. I uh, I was working at a technical institute. I had a colleague who had a family to tend to. I had another colleague who had taken some maternity leave during that time. I was upset and I became very stingy. I was working at a tutoring center. My boss, I don't want to say he was toxic. He probably uh, doesn't think outside of his box, right? So, for example, that Thanksgiving week, most of my colleagues took off, which is fine with me. I'm not very religious about Thanksgiving. There are other days that I'm religious about, but not Thanksgiving. So that's fine with me. The problem is when I don't get the other days that I'm religious about off, right? Also, that Thanksgiving week, on Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve, on Wednesday, we had a really busy first couple of hours. Only myself and the boss, and we had over a dozen students probably. That last hour, I had my favorite student, 11-year-old girl. I think she was studying calculus, if you can believe that. I got really excited to work with her, and my boss said it's okay, I could go. And I was upset because gotta remember, that whole week was just really challenging. Things were just flying off the handles, and not only did he ask me to leave early, but I was wondering if he was going to pay me for that 1 hour. Because you got to understand, it's a good commute into the center, and it was a 4 hour shift, and now it's three. And I left early, and I decided to head to Wallace, Idaho for that long weekend. This was in 2021. And at the end of November, I get my pay stub. He emails it to me, and I discover he doesn't pay me for that hour. And it's a very small gesture, right? After all, how much money are we talking? It's not a noticeable amount of money, but it's the gesture that really bugged me. And so after those two incidents, I really started to see colleagues as enemies, and that's been my quote unquote regime for the last 4 years. But it has really come back to bite me in my recent round of job searching. And I'm going to have to rethink about that. Granted, I don't want to be walked on all over again, but I also have to think about making meaningful connections, not just frittering away all of my resources, right? I think that's going to be the tricky part of it. I also don't do very well with networking with people that I want to room with. My last two sets of roommates, I got into boundary kind of issues. First, I moved into a house in Apache Junction, and I had a crush on the roommate. And also, I didn't have good boundaries with the landlord. A little bit of background: the landlord was in her mid 50s and was a middle school teacher. The other roommate was a construction worker, and I didn't realize it at the time. But when I moved in, she was pregnant. But I didn't realize that. I had a crush on her, and I it made setting boundaries tricky. So, for example, I have food allergies, and when my roommates leave dishes in the sink, I it makes it very difficult for me to use. And I would go out to get gloves and clean it up. Sometimes when I do that, you have to be careful about trying to grapple these things on your own. It can set in motion dependency on that, right? And I long story short, I I didn't want to bug either one of my roommates because I had weird feelings. One day I was in a rush, and so I didn't realize that the toilet had clogged, and I went out to do something else. And the owner of the place was very upset about that and screamed at me and explained that my other roommate was pregnant and all that. I genuinely didn't notice. I don't normally like to cause trouble like that. I was lost. Got to remember what I was going through at the time, right? And oh, here's another problem. I share too much with all of my roommates. I shared about how I had the heartbreak situation when I was dealing with COVID and all that. Now, why is that bad? Well, sometimes when you share too much, all of that can be used as ammunition against you, right? So, for example, just before Thanksgiving, we had a plumbing emergency. The place had flooded. Not an uncommon circumstance I hear here in Arizona because of all the hard water that we have. Pipes can corrode, uh, and I share too much about what I was doing at that moment in my life. So, for example, I had just returned to the dating scene, and on Thanksgiving night, see, I run into people walking over me every Thanksgiving for some reason. It's not a Thanksgiving anymore. It's more like a sorrow taking holiday for me. But I had finally got a chance to go to have a meaningful Thanksgiving party. I come home and my landlord asked me if I could pay the rent early. She had just had to pay a bunch of insurance deductible for the home repair. And you know what? The money really was sitting in my account. It was not a financial problem. The problem is that I kind of allowed her to walk all over me by paying it early. I should have put my foot down and said, you know, the flood happened 2 weeks ago. We still don't have carpet to walk on. Can you make sure this money goes toward the carpet at least? This right. I didn't put my foot down is the problem. Long story short, things did not go well after that. The relationship just became very one-sided, in large part because of how I was taking it. I made the mistake of I wanted to move out of there fast, and I made the mistake of moving in with my girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. And this is where having connections would have helped me. I often jump from one bad ship to the next bad ship, in large part because I don't have the right connections. I moved in with him one day while I had come back from work. I was exhausted, and I didn't really put my stuff in the right places. When I got up, I realized he had snooped around my stuff because he was talking about some lyrics that I had written down, and they were in my backpack. And my first thought was, why are you looking through my stuff? But I realized it was just lyrics. You know, it's not the end of the world. But at the same time, I really should have put my foot down. I really should have. But I needed the home. That's a big problem for me. A lot of times when I really should be putting my foot down, I need the home, I need the job, I need the income, I need the friend. Ah, it is such a bizarre jumble jam of emotions every time that happens. And I want to network more so I can be less dependent on each one of those, right? All right. We got Thanksgiving coming up. Hopefully, we can get through this Thanksgiving without another piece of sorrow like this. So it seems like a tradition for me that somebody will walk on me on Thanksgiving. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.